Couples YouTube channel, and we are back with more hot topic conversations. It's David.
Hiya.
David is Salt's customer success manager.
Yeah.
Manager. Phenomenal to have you here once again. We love having you on the sofa. We're tackling a very hot topic. Do Christian couples get married too quickly? What is the quickest you've known someone get married from first date to, say, engagement?
First date to engagement, probably 3 months.
I think I've got a 2 month. They were very good friends beforehand.
Okay.
And then they started dating. Within 2 months, they're engaged.
That does make a difference.
Haven from behind the cameras just told us that she knew a couple who got married after 2 weeks and were together until the woman passed away in her 80s, and they got married in their 20s. So look, we're not saying it doesn't work.
No.
But we wonder if maybe sometimes some Christian couples can be a bit hasty. Is that fair?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Definitely.
What's the longest that you've known a Christian couple who are both working towards marriage to wait before they get engaged?
For engagement, probably about 6 years.
I've got a 7-year, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
One-upping me every time.
No. I think we're in the same ball. No, it's the same range, right?
I think it's worth saying that they got together probably when they were 17, 18, which does make a difference.
The ones I'm thinking of were like, they were sort of maybe gap year age, so maybe 19. Okay. So yeah, it's similar sort of thing. Like, particularly if you're like high school sweethearts, then you could wait 5 years to get married and still not even be 20 yet.
Exactly.
So, okay, there's something quite obvious to call out here, right? Do you know what I'm about to say?
I don't think I do.
Look a bit scared.
I do look a bit scared.
Not consistently, and you can't make assumptions about these things, particularly more recently. But on the whole, Christian couples are encouraged to not have sex before marriage. And I'd say the vast majority of Christian couples I know definitely set out with that expectation. And sometimes things happen, things end up happening. But the majority do not want to have sex before they are married, which I think probably expedites the process.
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a part. I also think the not living together as well.
Yeah.
I would add into that. And, the whole subject of intimacy, not just around sleeping together, although I think that is a big thing. There's a stage where if you want to live like that as a Christian couple when you're dating, and everyone's got different boundaries. Yeah. I had a youth worker when I was younger who didn't hold hands with his wife before marriage. And each to their own.
Yes, sorry. Let me just... adjust my face. Each to their own.
Yeah, and I think it's
so
about
transparent.
And for some people, they have different levels of what they're comfortable with for it not to go any further.
Yeah,
and that is a very extreme end of the spectrum, of course. But I think that is definitely something that accelerates Christian couples wanting to get engaged and thinking about marriage.
Yeah. Do you think that there are cases where marriage has been driven by lust?
Yeah.
And actually once sex has been on the table or in the bed, as it were, they actually realised that it wasn't the connection that they thought, that maybe they'd rushed things and it maybe wasn't the right partner.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's definitely examples of that.
Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn is the one that comes to mind. She refused to sleep with him until his divorce was finalised and she was his wife, right? Went on for years.
Really?
And that is potentially why the Church of England exists.
Yeah.
Do you reckon we've got many sort of Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII stitches looking around the church?
I think we definitely have some, unfortunately. But you could have
really pushing you to say things that you'd prefer not to be saying right now.
You could have said anything, and the answer would be there's definitely some. So, unfortunately. But yeah, going back to the original question, there are definitely people who have got married out of lust and wanting the intimate side of a relationship. There are multiple reasons why that will not usually work out.
Yeah.
There's lots of other aspects to a marriage other than physical relationship and intimacy. And if that is your motive for getting married, then
you may find marriage a little bit lacking.
Yeah, I think so. If that's what you're wanting out of it, I would encourage you to go and speak to someone at your church. If that is genuinely how you're feeling. And I think if you're feeling that way towards someone that you're dating, I think that's a red flag as well, because you're not actually seeing them for who they are. And as a Christian, you should be looking at them for their identity in Christ first and foremost. But then also, like, there are so many awesome things about them that you're missing because you're wanting that one one thing.
I guess we're thinking that possibly in the vast majority of circumstances, if you're looking at 2-3 months, you probably want to give it a bit longer. And if you're looking at 6 to 7 years, unless you really were young when you got together, you may want to ask yourself why you haven't wanted to take that step sooner. Does that feel fair?
Yeah, I think so. And there's a different amount of time that is right for everyone. And I don't want to give that as a cliche answer, but...
Do you think we can narrow it down to a sort of window?
No. I don't think we can. We can try, but I think it's about when certain things are in place, and that was certainly true for me.
Yeah, let's talk about you.
Talk about me. I don't want to talk about me, but yeah. So for me, there comes a point at which you go from enjoying the dating phase, and for my wife and I, we really enjoy going out to eat, and we like playing sport, and there's lots of things that we enjoy doing. My wife's a lot more cultured than I am, so go to the odd cultural event that I did because I liked her. So I think there comes a point where you start to seeing more and more of your future with that person.
Yeah.
And when you first like someone, there's that infatuation. And I think there's definitely a point at which that infatuation doesn't go away, but it turns into something more where it's where it turns to love. And I don't want that to sound like super mushy or anything, but it's actually like, I want to go to a museum because I'm going with her. I don't love the museum at all, but I love going and spending time with her, and actually being able to see like what that future looks like was a real point at which, okay, now is the time to think about marriage and what that looks like. And for us, there was just over a year between us starting to date and me proposing. It was an interesting time because it was during COVID. And then about a year later, we had a very small COVID wedding that was live streamed.
So from the sort of first date to wedding, we're talking around 2 years.
2 years, I think.
With the engagement coming at the 1 year-ish mark.
Yeah, roughly. And that was the right amount of time for us. We had as I said, an interesting situation where my wife's a doctor, so we weren't allowed to bubble during COVID. So lots of you would have been bubbling with friends and family. We weren't able to do that. So for about 3 months, I'm not actually sure we saw each other in person. We're very lucky to live near the sea. So as soon as you could do outdoor things, we were able to go there and go for walks and things like that. But I think in terms of the timing and narrowing it down, it's how long does it take to get to know that person? My wife and I knew each other for about a year before we started dating. And
so it wasn't a sort of like a standing start. You were already kind of walking before you started running together.
Exactly. We played for the same tennis club. We went to the same church. There was interaction on a regular basis where we would see each other. And I think when you're trying to narrow down that amount of time that it takes to get to that point, how often you see each other is a really big factor in that. Because the dating process should be a fun, exciting time of getting to know someone. And what you're actually doing is you don't want to put too much pressure on it, but you're exploring where you want it to go. And how cool is it when it ends up in marriage? But if you're going in with a healthy attitude of this is going to be a fun opportunity for me to get to know this person, then actually you should see friendships coming out of that as well. Because if you've done it in a healthy way, then actually you're going to have just enjoyed getting to know that person. And there will be people where it's like, do you know what, we can be great mates, but like this is not going to work.
It's not going to be romantic.
In a marriage or romantic sense. So I think how much you get to see someone and how often you get to have those touch points of just seeing what life is like for them. And the longer that you're single as well, the more that you hopefully are building a single life, and the harder it is to fit someone into your single life as well. So how old you are and how these are all factors in how long it's going to take for you to integrate someone to the point where you know whether you want them to be a bigger part of your life. And to get married is in an integral union together. I don't know what the right words are, but you're completely bringing your lives together, and some things have to go. During marriage prep, my wife and I both had big groups of friends, and one of the things that we were told in marriage prep was some of those friends are not going to be able to be friends anymore. Not because we want to like fire them from being our friends, but like we're going to be joining friendship groups, and I'm going to become friends with her friends and vice versa, and we're not going to be able to keep up with all of these people. And I fought that quite hard, and we're probably still fighting that slightly. But going back to how long it takes, I think how often you get to see someone and spend time with them in a group setting and one-on-one is a huge factor. But if you want me to put a time on it, I'm going to go for 18 months.
18 months from first date to proposal, you think is enough time?
I think is enough time to get to know someone. I think if you live really locally, a year is more than enough time. And I think if you're a little bit further apart or you're not going to the same church initially, then I think couple of years is a good amount of time. And I think you're going to see that come out in your marriage as well if you've really taken the time to get to know someone before and you've had lots of these conversations that you need to have. I've seen people that propose like pretty quickly, like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and then you go through this like really awkward stage of like getting to know each other whilst you're like also preparing for marriage.
I don't think engagement is the time to get to know someone. I think that's what dating's for.
Absolutely.
Engagement is the time to have those conversations about, now that you both know each other, what it looks like, this new thing you're forming looks like, not what the two, I don't want to say old things, the two existing things are, because you know that. You take those two things and you design something beautiful together in engagement, and hopefully, and then step into it in marriage.
Absolutely. And when you go through all of these stages, you get to know someone in a different context. Trust me, planning a wedding. But you learn a lot about someone when you're trying to plan this event, and you're also, if you're not, probably not living together, you're then trying to sort your housing situation. That might be super simple for some people. Someone might already have a property, and others, or you might both be moving into a new place. There might be a slight relocation for one person. Like, you do not want to be needing to like figure out,
fundamentally learn about that person's character and what they like and dislike.
That engagement stage is busy. You're likely both working. There's loads of things to navigate, and you don't want to be going through that get to know you phase at that point.
Yeah. So I've heard people say you should do all 4 seasons. And what you suggested there, somewhere between a year, 18 months, 2 years, that sort of sits right with best advice from other people and what I've heard actually from people sort of anecdotally that they want. That's the length of time that they want to invest in something before they have more serious conversations. I think if this scares someone off, then they're probably not my person anyway. But I'll say on a first or second date that's a conversation. Not that I would expect a proposal, but I'd want to have that conversation very seriously at a year. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're getting engaged, but what it means is we're deciding whether or not that's what we're going to do. And if we're not, then we walk away. And if we are, then we know that that's going to be something in the next sort of 6 months or so that will come up when it feels like the right time for him, for me.
Yeah. And I think the way to do dating in a healthy way, and especially if it's one that leads, dating that leads to marriage, communication is key in any relationship. And I'm not a structured person in any part of my life. And I'm very glad that my wife is. That's part of what works. And she was certainly a lot better than I was at being like, not in a regimented, unhelpful way, but like checking in, like where are we at? I found that really helpful because it's something I'll just be like, this is going great. Like, we'll just carry on and like we'll talk about it when we talk about it. But depending on your personality, there's going to be a bit more need. Some people will want to state that up front. Some people will want to check in at regular points, and some people will happily just go on and then you'll just kind of know. And there's loads of things that you're going to encounter on your dating journey. Okay, everyone's different. There's meeting the parents, there's introducing to friends. There are so many things that happen along the dating road, and all of them require communication as to when you want them to happen, because you do, as I talked about earlier, the longer you're single, the more of a single life that you build, and you want to slowly integrate that person that you want to marry, hopefully eventually, into your life. And the caution that I would throw here, and why communication is so important, is for some people you get quite far down this road and then things end for a variety of reasons. Relationships are sometimes unpredictable in that way. If your communication has been on point from the beginning, that is going to be a much easier process to go through, because you're not going to have been guessing. Being blindsided and having the rug pulled out after a significant amount of time is super hard. But if it's that open communication, hey, I want you to meet my friends, I want you to meet my parents, and then it means that open line of communication is going to be there when something maybe isn't working, and you have the opportunity to maturely and healthily talk about it. And it might be that you're not necessarily aligned, and I'm not suggesting that you always amicably kind of go your separate ways, but that will be a much easier conversation to have for both of you if you've been communicating well the whole way through. And I think that's probably the most important piece of dating, engagement, marriage. You can bring it all back to communication in some way, shape or form.
So good. Gosh, David, The Lauren and David Show.
Good work.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Salt's YouTube channel for far more incredible dating, single, relationship conversations.